Welcome to Living the Grace Life. I'm your host, Jennifer Sakata, and you've made your way to the corner of real grace for your real life. Here at Living the Grace Life, we bridge the gap between this idea of grace, or its definition on paper as unmerited favor and pardon, and move into lived experience of God's grace, of His movement toward us, His welcome that is always reaching out. So in our conversation today, I want to start with this question. Do you like January? To be honest, I'm still not a full convert to this concept of joy in January. Here in central Illinois, January is filled with gray skies, slushy roads, and barren landscapes. Not to mention freezing cold. You know, the kind when you go out first thing in the morning and the little nose hairs freeze up and you're like, oh, am I still going to be able to breathe? It gets really cold here sometimes. And being honest, I'd much prefer to roll over and sleep in until it turns to 50 degrees or more. Add to that what I know is true for many of us. December's grief didn't magically disappear amongst all the twinkle lights and brown paper packages tied up with string. January can be tough. I get it. But I've also come to appreciate January's invitation to slow down, step back, and reflect before moving into a new year. December is so full and often loud that January brings with it this quiet hush that helps us sift through everything that happened this year before we move into a new year. Scrolling Instagram or Facebook, it looks like I'm already late in lingering over 2025. But I love what Emily P. Freeman said in her book, The Next Right Thing. Reflection is a lifestyle. It's not a one-time event. There's no hurry, no need to rush, no need to worry that 2 weeks into January, you're already behind, because I'm not behind and neither are you. Years ago, Emily's book introduced me to a grace-filled practice I take up at the end of most quarters. I reflect on 2 questions, and then I invite God to show me what it looks like to live in grace moving forward. The first question is, what has been life-giving in the last season? The second is its opposite, but just as important. What has been life-draining in the last season? When I take the time to sit with these questions, I'm constantly surprised at the ways God has shown up, not only in the things that I celebrate or I'm excited about, but also in those things that I struggled through. I find that these questions have grown intimacy and connection to God in ways I could never have imagined. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on those 2 questions. What has been life-giving and what has been life-draining? And since I want to leave us on a positive note, we're going to start with the things that have been life-draining. There have been quite a few of them, but in today's episode, we're going to talk about 2 compulsions that have drained the life out of me, because I suspect they are also life-draining for you. So grab your cup of coffee or tea, sit back in the driver's seat, throw your load in the laundry, whatever you're doing today, and let's do some reflecting together as we move forward in grace. The first compulsion may or may not relate to you, but I suspect the principle behind it will be highly relatable. For me, something that's been life-draining this year has been ignoring my sensitivity to dairy. Ignoring food sensitivities or other things that are unique about your body's needs never work out very well. I learned years ago that my body just doesn't process dairy very well. It makes my body feel miserable. I get these terrible headaches that sometimes lead to migraines. My joints ache, my body bloats. I just feel awful all over. And the funny thing is, I had no idea how awful I felt until I had finally begun to eliminate dairy out of my diet. Most days, I honor those limits and I stay away from dairy products until FOMO shows up. You know, fear of missing out. I want to eat what everyone else is eating, especially around the holidays. I want to enjoy what everybody else is oohing and eyeing over, even if just to taste a little bit. But the problem is, our bodies literally keep the score, and mine reminds me every time. I would guess I'm not alone in this. Maybe for you, it isn't food. Maybe it's pace of life. Everybody else is moving so fast and doing so many things and consuming so much that we all want to do it too. But what everyone else is doing isn't always good for you. In fact, it's often not. Jesus knew we would need this reminder when he prayed to the Father in John 17 that he would help us to be in the world, but not of the world. Sometimes grace looks like missing out, letting go of certain things or experiences or longings, even, and honoring how God made you uniquely, body, mind, and soul, to bring him glory and you joy in choosing what gives life rather than drains it. So, as you look back on this last year or these last several months, is there something you've been ignoring about what your body needs? It might be time to pay attention. The second compulsion that has not served me well this year, and this is a big one, it's taking on other people's emotions. As I looked back through the pages of my journal, I kept seeing entry after entry where I was either taking on other people's emotions or working hard to manage them. Friend, you and I are not in control of someone else's emotions. It's never been our job to figure things out for people who can't seem to figure things out for themselves. The problem with taking on other people's emotions is we lose sight of our own emotions, literally get enveloped into the emotions of others. And before we know it, we've gotten swept away in this tide of other people's emotions we have absolutely no control over. It reminds me of an illustration my friend Lisa Saruga wrote in her book, The Trauma Tree, which came out earlier this past year. I highly recommend it for those who have experienced any kind of life-altering trauma. The Trauma Tree has been extremely helpful in helping me to identify places where I'm trying to control other people's emotions. It's filled with practical steps and tools for letting go of other people's emotions. She uses an illustration in her book that I think is incredibly helpful. Consider your lawn and the fence or the boundary you've put around it. That boundary marks the end of your lawn and the beginning of someone else's. It makes clear what belongs to you and what belongs to them. Lisa reminds us that grace and healing grow best when we're tending the soil beneath our own feet. Instead of comparing, striving, or managing someone else's journey, we're called to nurture our own heart, to take what we're feeling and what we're experiencing to God in prayer, in Bible study, in service to Him. We are called to take what is ours and deal with that. And listen, I get it. I know it's hard. It's easy to get caught up when people we love are doing and saying and being things that we are sad about or disappointed in or surprised by in not the greatest of ways. I get it. But even more than I get it, God gets it. Grace enables us to stay on our own lawn and cultivate a yard people want to play in. So whether you've ignored things your body needs or you've spent time trying to manage things in another person's life, none of these things bring life. So friend, let it go. Confess it and let it go. When we ask God for His grace, to come toward us and restore what we can't restore ourselves, we will never get a no answer from God. That's the kind of prayer He always says yes to. Grace is only hard to come by when we neglect in the asking for it. The flip side of what's life draining is what brings life, what restores life. Again, as I paged through my journal, there were 3 practices that kept rising to the surface. The first is breath prayers. Breath prayers have become for me a welcome timeout when my soul is kicking and anxious and super sassy. They're simple and uncomplicated ways of talking with God. They have this amazing capacity to help me pause and begin again. As Becky Keefe wrote in her book, A Verse a Day for the Anxious Soul, we inhale truth and exhale trust. Physically, breath prayers help regulate our breathing, but it's also a spiritual practice that allows us to pause so we can remember what's true about God and what's true about us. So here's how breath prayers work. It's not at all complicated. You inhale for 4 or 5 counts while saying some portion of scripture or something that's true about God or your circumstances. And then you exhale slowly for 4 or 5 counts with something true about God and how God orients us back to Himself. Follow that with a brief pause before beginning again. Do this several times, as many times as you need to bring the kind of calm and deeper soul breath that brings life. A breath prayer I often pray is this: inhale, I belong to you, Lord, and exhale, and so do they. You can make it specific and put the person's name in place of the word they. The breath prayer I prayed on day 13 of Becky's book, entitled The Badge of Weariness, went like this: inhale, I lay down my badge of weariness. Exhale, in God I find new strength. I lay down my badge of weariness. In God I find new strength. Breath prayers aren't complicated. They simply require we pause for a few moments and acknowledge what's going on inside us, and then give space for God to speak, whether it's a word of encouragement or comfort or instruction or confession. All of it moves us in intimacy toward God as His grace moves toward us. A second practice has been cultivating a list of worship songs in my head and in my heart. When I kicked off our new season of Living the Grace Life, the season we're calling When Grace is Hard to Come By, I felt prompted to ask my guests about a go-to grace song that grounds them in God's grace and how it does that. Without fail, these songs have met me at just the right time with just the right reminder, like a deep breath after shallow breathing for so long. Music is a place where you and I can learn to pause and remember who we belong to. Right now, my go-to grace song is actually a toss-up between 2. A song called So Much Grace by Jonathan David and Melissa Hessler, and another song called Roses by Andrew Ripp. I'd not heard either of these songs until Becky Beresford and Neil Matthews shared each of them in their episodes here on Living the Grace Life. Listen to the first verse of So Much Grace. East went looking for west, but never found him. Guilt went looking for my past, but only found love. I heard about a sea where sin sinks like stones. There's no floor there, just mercy down below. I love that. And then the chorus, it's literally the phrase, there's so much grace and it repeats itself 4 times. And I don't know about you, but sometimes for me, I need to hear the same message over and over again for it to penetrate. In this song, it does that for me. It reminds me that there is no limit to God's grace. The other song is a song called Roses by Andrew Lipp. The chorus goes like this: He must have known about the heartbreak long before us. He must have known about the mistakes. Still, he chose us. And listen to this: planted the tree where he would die, put thorns down the vine, and then he wore them. And love is the blood red stain, the beauty that the pain exposes. Maybe that's why God made roses. Every time I hear this song, I'm beautifully undone in ways that bring life to the bigness of God's love for all of us, of what it cost God to send his son and what it cost the son to bring salvation, not just in a moment, but every day of our lives as we live into it. It's pretty humbling, and it brings me back to God's grace every time. So I'm curious, do you have a go-to grace song? If you do, I would love to listen to it. You can send me a message at jennifer@jennifersakata.com or reach out to me on my website at jennifersakata.com. And here's a little something. I've been working on a curated song list of all the songs recommended by my guests since the start of our new season in September. So that'll be coming out soon. Make sure you look for it. Eventually, it'll be in the show notes. But those 2 songs I just mentioned, So Much Grace and Roses, I'll link those in the show notes today so you can listen as well. So what's brought life to me this season? Breath prayers, worship songs, and my 2025 word of the year. For years, I resisted choosing a word of the year. It seemed so limiting, not to mention a lot of pressure on 365 days. But like with January, I've come to appreciate the invitation that comes from orienting myself around a particular word. Rather than limit me, it's actually helped me live with my eyes more widely open, more alert to what God is doing and wants to do in me and around me and through me. My word for 2025 was come. And at first glance, it's a word that has to do with celebration and movement. Come to this party, come to this gathering, come to these people. But what this word has reminded me is that God often calls us to deep grief and sorrow, uncertainty, things that threaten to disorient and undo us. When I come to God, when you and I pause, we're reminded that he can be trusted with whatever it is we're walking through. He can be trusted with the people we're concerned about. He can be trusted with the things that churn up all kinds of uncertainty in us. I needed to remember that a lot this year. And that's what a word of the year does. I'm curious, once again, do you have a word of the year? Every year, I keep a list of people's words of the year and pray for you and whatever word God has given you to orient your year. So if you have a breath prayer or a grace go-to song or a word of the year or all of the above, then let me know. Send it to me at jennifer@jennifersakata.com. I've not put this out on socials yet, but I want to share my 2026 word of the year with you. It's gentleness. This word kept rising to the surface for me. I kept seeing it in a variety of places, reading it in several books, hearing it on the radio and in conversations with other people. Every time I would hear this word, it was like my spirit just jumped a little, like pay attention to that word. And being honest, I didn't really like this word at first because gentleness, it seems so weak, so behind the scenes, so passed over. And if we've met in real life, then you know I really struggle with that. That's not typically my personality. I like to be out there, live out loud, and running with the horses, so to speak. But I'm already discovering there's incredible strength to this often overlooked fruit of the Spirit. I have no idea what gentleness is going to call me to in 2026, but I suspect gentleness is a unique on ramp for growing grace in our lives. If you live here in the United States, then you're probably aware that we are near the end of football season. We were watching wild card games all weekend, and I was reminded of something every quarterback does before he moves forward. He always steps back and looks down the field to see the best possible outcome in passing the ball. They don't always make it. Sometimes their throws are off, or their receiver isn't where they need to be, or just has a fumble. It's that pause a quarterback takes that gives him the best possible outcome for moving forward. Friend, grace reminds us we need that too. Before moving into 2026, pause for a little bit and think about what are those things that have been life draining to you and things that have brought life to you, that have made you wake up and sit taller, even if it's something you didn't expect. And then ask God, how do these reflections invite me to move forward in living real grace in my real life? One of the most common habits people want to pick up at the start of the year is praying more often. If you haven't already downloaded it, I've created for you a free downloadable called Living the Grace Life, One Prayer at a Time. Sometimes we think prayer ought to be left to the professionals and the people who seem to have this direct line of communication with God. Let me be the first to say that is not at all true. Whether you are a seasoned prayer or someone just beginning, I think you'll find this 4-chapter ebook a welcome invitation in leaning into conversation with God that grows our grace. You can find that linked in the show notes below or on my website at jennifersakata.com. Up next week, I am thrilled to welcome Jennifer Dukes Lee, author of How to Love Your Morning, which comes out in March of 2026. I can't wait to get my hands on it. But friends, we get a sneak peek because our episode drops next week. You can be among the first to hear bits and pieces from her book before it's even published. So here are 2 questions for you to consider before listening next week. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl? What if I told you you're a morning person and so is God? Be sure and listen next week as Jennifer helps us understand that being a morning person has nothing to do with the hands on the clock, but rather how we wake up. And then in 2 weeks, we hear from Marielle Davenport. How does an atheist become a Jesus follower and then write a Bible study on the book of Ruth and unexpected grace? You'll have to listen in and find out. And you don't want to miss Marielle's TEND method for Bible study. These are 2 women whose grace needles are growing strong, and I can't wait for you to meet them. Thanks for doing some reflecting with me today. It is truly my honor and privilege to be part of this grace-growing community with you. I love to hear from you, so feel free to email me at jennifer@jennifersakata.com, or you can find me on all the socials at Jennifer Sakata or on my website at jennifersakata.com. Until next time, remember to live the grace life generously, friend. Grace for you, grace for them.